Let's go.
Feeling well?
Baruch Hashem.
Good, good, good. Okay. All right. We are on Kaf Hay.
Hmm.
Regarding a block that one set in a row of bricks, whether he set it in the wall but did not build on it, or he built on it but did not set it in the wall, unto the wall it is Tameh. But if he set it into the wall and built on it, it's Tahor. Regarding a mat that one placed over the ceiling beams, whether he attached it to the beams but did not lay plaster over it, or he laid plaster over it and did not attach it to the beams, it is Tameh. But if he attached to it and laid plaster over it, it is Tahor. Regarding a plate that one attached to a bin or a chest or a cabinet, if he attached it in the way that it receives, it is Tameh. But if it was attached in the way that not in the way it receives, it's Tahor. Regarding a sheet that is susceptible to becoming Tameh with Midras Tuma and one made it into a curtain, it is impervious to Midras Tuma but is susceptible to becoming Tameh with Corpse Tuma. From when does it become Tameh? Beis Shammai says for when it is broken. Beis Hillel says from when it is retied, and Rabbi Akiva says when it is attached. A mat in which one placed reed stalks along its length is Tahor, but the comments say only if its stalks are laid similar to the shape of a key. If you place the reed stalks along the mat width, and there are not 4 handbreadths between one width and the next, it is Tahor. If it's split in the middle, then Yehuda said it's Tahor, and similarly, if one unties the end knots, it is Tahor. If we split its length and 3 knots remain of 6 handbreadths, it's Tameh. From when does a mat become susceptible to Tuma? When it is trimmed, and this represents the completion of its manufacture.
Okay. So the Mishnayos today are like quite technical in terms of the parts of various different implements with lots of moving parts. And we could easily get ourselves lost in the weeds of knowing which part is which part. And I really don't want to get sucked into trying to work out the anatomy of each structure. What I get out of here is the principle of what makes it tahor or what makes it tameh. Okay, so I'm not going to dwell too much on the function of each of the moving parts. So you can see this lovely diagram on page 935 showing exactly how a treadle loom works. It's a wonderful piece of engineering, and as an engineer, I look at it and think, wow, this is just so clever. Okay, it's so simple and so clever, but nonetheless, it's the point that we're trying to get over here is what renders what susceptible to tumah. So starting off with this loom, we already have a question which the Rishonim disagree about as to what exactly is the case that we're talking about, because it doesn't the Mishnah doesn't spell out what is tameh and what is tahor in this whole case. Who in the equation of who is where's the transmission of tumah supposed to be happening? There are two possibilities. One possibility is that the person who's coming and touching the thing is tameh, and we're questioning if the cloth, the fabric that is on the loom, if that becomes tameh from him touching various parts of the loom. So does it transmit the tumah to the cloth?
Right.
Okay. Because honestly, most of the parts of the loom is a wooden structure. So the loom itself is not going to become tameh because it's all wooden pieces with no receptacle. Right. Okay. On the other hand, the other Mefarshim who find this difficult because the cloth that's still on the loom is not yet a usable or finished object. So they have a difficulty and say, how can you say that this is susceptible to tumah, that the cloth could be susceptible to tumah at all when you haven't finished making the cloth? It's not a.
We already said that once it's finished with the knots tied, when all those things.
So the knots tied is we're talking about the wicker baskets, because that's a specific thing. But a piece of cloth that's still on the loom is not yet a functional piece of cloth. You can't use it for anything. Right. Only once it's been taken off the loom is it workable. Right. Okay, so those Rishonim come and say, well, no, actually it's the other way around. What we're talking about is you're in a wait. Okay, my explanation might not be good because the alternative explanation is that the cloth is tameh mace, so it is an avha tumah. Okay, and the person now comes and touches the various parts of the loom, and the question is, does he now become a rishon atoma from having come into contact with the
He's not touching the cloth, he's touching the parts, the loom.
right? He's touching the parts. So this is this is basically what we're going to be discussing in this Mishnah. And before we even get into the various parts that are going to be named, like I said, I don't want to get into the weeds of what are the names and what are the different parts. What I want to get at is the principle. So first, we're going to list a whole bunch of parts that a person can touch, and tumah is not transmitted. Why is it not transmitted? Because these parts are not considered permanently attached to the fabric. Okay, the fabric is the part that's significant in terms of tumah and tara. So I think I may be wrong about my objection that it's not a finished piece of cloth. It must be already woven. So once something's already been woven, it starts coming out of the machine, and you've now got a piece of cloth which actually you could just cut it off, and it's already usable. Right. So maybe that's so maybe that it's not such a dispute. I might have spoken incorrectly. I'm just thinking now. So at any rate, the parts of the loom that do not transmit tumah. The first ones that are listed: the upper beam, the lower beam, the heddles, the reed, the thread which he placed upon purple wool, or a swatch that he doesn't intend to leave there. So another piece of fabric that he put into the fabric that he's weaving, but there's sort of a place marker or something that he's going to pull out. So
as you're going through the names of these parts, are you looking at the diagram on 935 or?
I'm looking at I'm on to 936 and actually listing the parts in the Mishna.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So they're called the Kovid Elyon, Kovid Tachton, and Nirim, Keros, Chut, Chut Shevira Al Gabe Argaman, Uba She'ena Asilach Zira. Right. So the parts that are not considered significantly attached to the fabric. And conversely, the Nefesh HaMaseches, if he touches the weft of the fabric, okay, that's so the weft is the shuttle that keeps that he keeps passing through from left to right to left to right, etc. while he's moving his feet and shifting the weave. So that you've got the warp, or those are the threads that are perpendicular to him, and he's sitting and lifting them up and down, and the weft is the shuttle that goes backwards and forwards. So if he touches the weft, so that thread that is connected to the shuttle that is going backwards and forwards, if he just touches that is considered connected to the main fabric. Okay, and therefore tumah will be transmitted in whichever direction we're talking about having it transmitted. Okay, the standing warp, right? The shasi ha'omed. So the warp that has been stretched and is waiting for waiting to be woven into the fabric. Okay. So the doubled material which he placed upon purple wool. So this over here is when purple wool is incorporated into the woven fabric, it's common to place a protective covering over it until the fabric is complete. Here the Mishnah speaks of a piece of material sewn over the expensive purple wool to keep it clean. So unlike the earlier case in which threads were simply placed over the purple wool, here the piece of material is fastened more securely with stitching. So since it's fastened with stitching, it's considered part of the fabric and therefore it transmits. Okay, tame, right? And so, and again with a swatch that he's putting in there and intent to leave there, that is also considered connected to the fabric, and tumah is transmitted. Okay, okay, now the wool that's on the distaff. So here the distaff is what is the distaff is a rod around which the unspun wool is wrapped prior to being spun into thread. So it's made of either metal or wood and possesses a storage receptacle where the spinning paraphernalia were kept. So thus even the wooden version is susceptible to tumah. Okay, so that so that is so you might have thought that if you touch the wool that's on this distaff, you might think, okay, it's connected to the central rod, which is which is susceptible to tumah, but since it's not considered a connection because ultimately you're going to take the wool off there. It's
I'm
not.
trying to see whether this stuff is in the diagram, but I don't
It's the stick on the left.
think on the left. Which diagram?
943.
Sorry,
943.
stick on the left. Okay. Okay.
You got the diagram on page 943 on the bottom.
No, I'm looking at the wrong page. 940, 943. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, I see the stick over here.
Right, that's your distaff.
Now, how does that apply into the mechanics of the?
No, we're not talking about the loom anymore.
Okay, all right.
We're talking about a stick that he uses for spinning the wool.
Line. Okay, all right.
But it's not like a permanent home for it. The shuttle, okay. Ashvaya. So, wait, hang on. That's the distaff. The ima. So according to Rambam, that ima is actually the shuttle, and so as opposed to the distaff over there, and the ashvaya over here is a different kli which is used for what? Where is it? Where's ashvaya? Oh, ashvaya is mentioned separately over here. The ashvaya is also a type of distaff, but of a different design. Okay, so it's the triangular one. So but it's basically the same idea, but just different shape. Okay, so all of these are tahor. The wool is not finding a permanent home on here, and therefore it's not connected for tumah. Okay, the pika. By the way, the wool that hasn't been turned into fabric, of course, is not susceptible to tumah. It's only once it becomes a piece of cloth that it actually starts becoming susceptible to tumah. Okay, and I'll give a pika. So the pika over here, the whirl, you can see the picture on 944. That's also a tool used for spinning. So it's got that heavy weight at the bottom, and it's used to give it a nice bit of momentum, so you can spin it, and it'll pick up your thread and wind it around the rod.
We learned something about cleaning when the cloth is clean, then it's susceptible when the wool when
What?
they were shearing. We learned something about shearing when they were shearing, when the wool is then finally cleaned. Something about it becoming susceptible to
Okay, so we're
tumor.
talking about the cleaning of the wool, perhaps during Reshit HaGeiz. That's when you weigh it for the Kohen? When you got to give the gifts to the Kohen, remember there's that part of but it's raw wool that you can give to the Kohen. It's the shearings. You give the shearings to the Kohen. So that's the point where I think it needs to be. And there might have been a machlokes about whether you need to wash it or not.
Right. Okay.
But well remembered. It's a good point there. Okay. And again, pika ad shelo pera'ah tameh misha pera'ah tahor. So if it's so the wall itself is just a plain wooden implement with a metal weight that serves the rod. The functional part actually is the stick. So the whirl itself is not subject to tumah by itself. Wait just a second. Hold on. Also mentioned is the I beg your pardon. No, this is a case when where the spindle is made of metal. Okay, it has contracted tumah, so it's an ava tumah from a mace, and one who touches the whirl will also become tameh, because the whirl is a yad of the spindle. Okay, and so when you're talking about covering it or uncovering it, this is talking about where it's a temporary spool where the newly spun thread is wrapped. Once the spinning is complete, the thread will be removed from the spindle and the whirl. Okay, so until the whirl is uncovered from either the cords which bind it to the spindle, or from the spun thread which had been wrapped around it. So the whirl and the spindle are considered connected. Okay, but if it's after it's been uncovered, the two are considered separate pieces, and therefore they're not connected as far as Tumah is concerned. That's so it's just talking about the Kli of the world itself. Are those two parts considered connected in terms of transmission of Tumah? Okay. Hanogea ba'ol. So now we're talking about the yoke. So if you just flip the page quickly, you'll see all the different parts of the yoke. So once again, the components of the plow. So there are only a few pieces of this plow that are actually subject to Tumah, and those are going to be the parts that are made out of metal. So the plowshare over there, you can see the point over there, that's got to be metal. You're not going to be plowing far with wood. Okay, there's a metal ring that joins the beams in the middle of the shaft of those beams, and there are
Isn't there something at the bottom near the plowshare, the moldboard? Is that metal also?
So the moldboard, that's also wood.
Wood. All right, look, dark color.
It's just meant to sort of push the newly dug up sand off to the side so that you leave a nice channel. Okay. So once again, just as we did with the loom, we're talking only about connection for Tumah. What other parts are considered connected, and what parts are considered not connected to the Tumah susceptible pieces. So touching the all katre ayin ba'avos afilu b'shas melacha tahor, even while the whole thing is in use, touching the yoke, the crossbar, the collar, the beam, and whatever, there's no transmission of Tumah to the metal pieces. It's not close enough. Okay. But touching the handle, so you see the handle that's right just above the plow. So that's where you direct the business end of the plow. That's a direct handle onto the piece of metal over there, and you're directing it directly. So that results in transmission of Tumah. The borech is also that bent piece that's also directly connected to the metal, and the guide. All of those are directly functional. The rest is kind of too distant to transmit the Tumah. Now about the ayin shel mateches v'lechayayin u'b'arayin tameh. So touching the metal ring or the coulters or the mold boards, it's also tameh. So these things are also very close to the functional part of the plow, and this also results in transmission of Tumah. Rabbi Yehuda metaher b'lechayim. So the coulters, he says, are actually not. So the coulters, that's the piece on top of the plow. Since wait, not I beg your pardon. The coulters are the things at the front of the plow. You see those two spikes in between the two horses or donkeys. And that's those are they're sort of a lead thing. Their purpose is only to increase the amount of dirt, since it's not and not not close enough. But the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, we're going to have to move quickly because we're already running out of time. So you got this big saw over here. There are two different opinions in Rishonim as to what the saw is.
Right.
Okay, but basically, again, the functional piece and the piece that's susceptible to Tumah is that metal blade. Okay, the wooden pieces by themselves would not be susceptible to Tumah were they not directly connected to that metal blade. And again, it's only the pieces that are directly affecting the metal that are moving it, that are holding onto it. Those are the pieces that will. There's
a dowel at the bottom of it. There's a dowel on the right and left side. So that's what you mean. Right.
Yes, exactly. So those are holding on. So let's take a look. So the handles. So wherever the handles are that are moving that piece of metal, that results in Tumah transmission. Any other parts over here do not result in transmission of Tumah, because they are too peripheral to the actual business end of this metal. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, so now Masar Gadol, Also, when it touches the frame is tahor. So looking at the Masar HaGadol, that's your diagram on 953. I beg your pardon. Right, I jumped because we jumped through the carpenter's press and the bow-shaped handle of an auger. You can see the carpenter's press over here. The wooden piece over here is not considered strongly enough connected to that metal. Okay, and that handle of the auger, that's interesting. The kashtanis, that interesting that should be tahor, because you would think that should be that this should be tameh, because you're directly holding onto the, it seems like a yad to the metal piece. So why does the auger not? I skipped over that when I was tahor. Why did I touch it? And the wooden handle is not trying to tie. These five are not treated as connected to the metal component because they are not permanently or firmly joined to the metal. Okay, that's the answer, because they're not permanently joined to the metal.
Oh, so it says that the bow-shaped handle is attached to the tapered metal billet, and to drill a hole, one grabs the handle at both ends and rotates it.
Yeah. Okay, that's the right. And the great saw over there, you can see the picture of the frame on 953. So that frame does not connect to the metal blade for tumah. Only the handles do.
Okay.
And that's only Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. So I'm guessing that Chachamim will disagree with that. It doesn't. The entire area of the handles and the whole frame is considered connected to the saw, because the whole thing is used to move the metal. Okay, that's the opinion of Chachamim. Hanogea beyeser uvakeshes af al pi shehi mesucha tahor. So now talking about bow and arrow. The bow and arrow is a wooden implement. The string is a string which is also not subject to tumah. So now the arrow is metal.
Right.
Okay, and now so while he's touching, so while the arrow is loaded into the bow, it's you might think that there's a connection between them, because it's one apparatus, and the answer is no. They're completely separate things. The bow launches the arrow. If you touch the arrow, tameh. Touch the bow, no. Okay, even if it's stretched, it's still tahor. Mitsudas ha'eshos, right? So this mole trap, while we're talking about bows and arrows, the mole trap apparently was designed similar to a sort of miniature bow and arrow, where if the mole stepped on the trap, then it would launch a little arrow that's supposed to come and kill the mole. Okay, but that trap is tahor, even though it's got the metal arrow that's supposed to deliver death to the mole. But Rabbi Yehuda says, "Kol zman shehi mesucha chibur." But while it's loaded and waiting to fire, it's considered connected to the arrow for transmission. But again, halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda. Only the arrow is so much like the bow and arrow. In the case of the mole trap, only the dangerous part it will result in transmission of tumah. Okay, we don't have time for chazaras. I need to go, so I'll leave you to do the chazaras yourself.
Right. I'll start myself right now. Hey, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.